Alright, all you graveyard shift racers out there, welcome back to Under the Radar. And this week's Stunts of the Week goes to none other than Vinewood on Fire with their stunt Betty Glide Ring of Water, and also goes to a Circle Wheelie by Stabber, I'm a Stabber. Or I'm a Stabber with that stunt we just said. Now, the reason why these two stunts made it in for this week, folks, not only because for the first stunt, they were crazy enough to get back on the bike after shattering at least 3 of their ribs in an attempt to do something cool, but the second stunt, anybody crazy enough to pull a circle wheelie off in gang territory and not get shot is a winner in our book as well. And not to mention displaying a perfect motto of at first you don't succeed, try, try, try again. And you'll eventually get it to work. And speaking of getting things to work on the first try or the 31st, depending on how many times they had to test them, I think it's time for us to get ready to rev our engines and check out some cool tracks for this mid-month part of the show for another edition of the GTA Online Top 5 Tracks of the Week. And the first track that we have up comes from the creator Family 1974 with their said track Waiting on Lightning ZZZZ. No, seriously, it has 4 Z's in the title for the track. But besides all those Z's that are in that track, I promise you this will not be a boring ride if you take it, because it involves you riding up a giant oversized half-pipe that only Family 1974 could make in the middle of the Grand Sonora Desert. And trust and believe me when I say this, folks, when you're in the air, you might want to watch out for checkpoints that will be lurking about during this said track. And alongside with that piece of advice, the only other advice we have for you fans out there, when you're near the last lap of this said race, near checkpoint 8, make sure you don't speed past it, because if you do, there's a high possibility you will lose this race. Because that's what happened to me. I just kept running on through, ran past checkpoint 8, flew over thinking there was another checkpoint down the line, and there wasn't. So yeah, keep your eyes peeled for those checkpoints. And the next track that we have up comes from the creator Villammer 10 with his said track, Wow! Or should I say it like Freedom Fighters, Maestro? Whoa! And besides the name of this track, which is absolutely awesome, it features some cool, awesome stunts that will require you to have what Mr. Miyagi would call perfect balance. And when I say that, folks, seriously, you're gonna need some perfect balance during this said track, because if you go a little bit high or a little bit low during that wall ride portion of the track, you will fall to the city streets below, and it will cost you during this said race. And the only other tip of advice we have for you fans out there is to make sure you test this track with the Osiris first before you decide to use any of your personal vehicles for this said track. Because the creator would say Osiris only, but I would be able to do it with a Zentoro. But, you know, just in case, to get your feet wet for this track, use an Osiris. And the next track that we have up comes from the creator Foulek Star with his said track, Up and Down Number 1. Now, the reason why in the world we like this track for this week is a question for you fans out there. Have you ever been on one of those giant water slides or one of those bare bone slides that requires you to have a lunch sack or something like that underneath you while you slide down that giant slide? same concept with this very race, with the exception that you'll be sliding down at almost 100 miles per hour, maybe even faster, and not only a Marshall, a ramp buggy, also a Faggio, and alongside with it a Panto and a Street Blazer. Probably one of the most dangerous vehicles you could ride on for this said track. And the only tip of advice we have for you ramp riding fans out there for this said track is to make sure you're able to maintain your speed while making your way down this track and stay in the lane that you're in. Because the second you start going left or right, when those bumps start to kick up on that slide, it will cause you to fly off that ramp and you will have to go all the way back up to the top of the slide, which will cost you during this said race. So like I said before, stay centered and make sure you have perfect control over your car and you should win. Or bike. Yeah, thank you for the reminder, Maestro. Or bike. And the next track that we have up comes from the creator XNOP79 with his said track, Project Zancudo. And the reason why we picked this track for this week, folks, not only because it reminds us of the Rocket Garden from Freakstyle, but also because he was able to turn Fort Zancudo into a rocket base. Yeah, really turned it into a rocket base, which was pretty cool. And the only tip of advice we have for you fans out there for this said track, when going through certain tubes, make sure you maintain your level and your control of where the bottom is, because if you don't, let's just say you can ride upside down, but at the same time, there is a limit to it, and once you reach it, your car will explode if you're riding upside down through one of those tunnels, and the end is near. So, like I said before, make sure you know your footing in those said tunnels and you should be just fine. And oh, as a bonus, if you do, let's just say there's a little bit of a boost waiting for you on the bottom too. And the last but not least track that we have up for this week, speaking of boost, comes from the creator Genopa with his said track, G Postopil Speedway. And this said crazy roller coaster like track, which is one out of the 7 crazy tracks he's already made that looks like a speed luge if you look at it at the right angle, is a perfect track to truly test the handling of your said car. And the only tip of advice I have for you race fans out there is to be careful with the tires you have for this said car. Because according to Genopa himself, he recommends that you use off-road tires for this track and use Muscle Dominator GTX, the default vehicle for the said track. Because if you try to go with speed cars, let's just say you're really gonna have to be prepared for those hairpin turns. So yeah, start small, then go big. Or if you're one of those type of people like me, go big and go home. And yes, Maestro, I said it right, because if you're going that big on that track with those speed cars and fly off, you will fly home. I'm telling you, just as a warning. And if you guys want to try out any of these tracks that we mentioned for this week, plus other tracks we managed to sprinkle in along the way, you can head on over to the socialclub.rockstar games page, only known as socialclub.rockstargames.com, and search up the playlist entitled Indie Jump 2. Because we just realized we made an Indie Jump 1 last year, so this is the sequel. And a sequel that will pay you out about well over $100,000 if you're able to complete the entire course with at least 2 to 3 people along with you. More than that, and you'll get more money. So good luck, race fans out there. And I guess with that said, wraps it up for another edition of the GTA Online Top 5 Tracks of the Week. And I guess with that said, we might as well head back into the music, and when we return, we'll be back with the final segment for Under the Radar for this week, right after this. So don't tune out on that madness just yet, folks, and stay tuned.